Babylon. The Dying God. Understanding the cult of the ancient Chaldean Magi of Babylon, the purported priests of Zoroastrianism, is essential to understanding the development of cults and philosophies of the Hellenistic age, and therefore, the subsequent history of Western occultism, including Freemasonry and ultimately the New Age movement. However, numerous scholars have disputed the extent of the influence of the Magi in the ancient world, as Zoroastrianism clearly exercised a very limited impact. The puzzle was resolved by Frans Cumont, one of the greatest scholars of the last century, whose research may have failed to have made an impression for the fact that his most important work, Les Mages Hellénices, the Hellenized Magi, remains untranslated into English. Cumont's key finding was that the Magi were not Orthodox Zoroastrians, but heretics whom he renamed Magusians, who corrupted their original faith with the Babylonian magic. What Cumont did not note, however, is that the 6th century BC, the period during which the heretical Magian cult was developed in Babylon, was the same period and city where the Jews were held there in exile and developed the Kabbalah. And while conventional scholars dispute their role, it has been openly acknowledged by secret societies who regard them as the source of their teachings. Though largely anachronistic, Morals and Dogma, by former Civil War General Albert Pike, 1809–1891, Grand Master of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, provided an explanation of the origins of occult history with a level of precision and detail not seen among mainstream scholars. Noting that the Illuminati, like their predecessors the Templars, Rosicrucians, and Freemasons, were all inheritors of the ancient tradition of the Kabbalah by way of the Magi. The occult science of the ancient Magi was concealed under the shadows of the ancient mysteries, it was imperfectly revealed or rather disfigured by the Gnostics, it is guessed at under the obscurities that cover the pretended crimes of the Templars, and it is found enveloped in enigmas that seem impenetrable, in the rites of the highest Masonry. Magism was the science of Abraham and Orpheus, of Confucius and Zoroaster. It was the dogmas of this science that were engraven on the tables of stone by Enoch and Trismegistus. Moses purified and revealed them, for that is the meaning of the word reveal. He covered them with a new veil, when he made of the Holy Kabbalah the exclusive heritage of the people of Israel, and the inviolable secret of its priests. The mysteries of Thebes and Eleusis preserved among the nations some symbols of it, already altered, and the mysterious key whereof was lost among the instruments of an ever-growing superstition. Jerusalem, the murderess of her prophets, and so often prostituted to the false gods of the Syrians and Babylonians, had at length in its turn lost the holy word, when a prophet announced by the Magi by the consecrated star of initiation Sirius came to rend asunder the worn veil of the old temple, in order to give the church a new tissue of legends and symbols, that still and ever conceal from the profane, and ever preserves to the elect the same truths. 1. Freemasonry is founded on the belief that the teachings of the Magi were adopted by King Solomon, who employed them in the construction of his famous temple. According to the Quran, Solomon was falsely accused of practicing magic by apostate Jews who learned magic from the Satans in Babylon. In 1856, in Spiritualism, a Satanic Delusion, and a Sign of the Times, Pastor William Ramsey remarked, "One of the most striking proofs of the personal existence of Satan, which our times afford us, is found in the fact, that he has so influenced the minds of multitudes in reference to his existence and doings, as to make them believe that he does not exist." 2. One of the consequences of the empirical tradition inaugurated by the Enlightenment of the 18th century is a rejection of anything associated with the so-called supernatural. While the possibility of the existence of disembodied entities is ridiculed in Western academia and considered contrary to science and empiricism, belief in such entities throughout human history has been nearly universal. They have gone under many names and interpretations throughout the centuries, including ghosts, goblins, demons, leprechauns, elves, fairies, and in Islam they are known as jinn, popularized in the English language as genies. Most recently, They have also been referred to as extraterrestrials. According to the Quran, Satan was not a fallen angel, but belonged to this race of jinn, who were composed of smokeless fire. This perhaps was a reference, in the language of the 6th century AD, to energy. According to Islam, these jinn are subject to free will, and maintain an invisible yet parallel existence to that of human beings. According to Islamic tradition, jinn are capable of numerous abilities, including shape-shifting into the form of a dog, cat, snake, or traveling great distances instantaneously. They can also enter and possess the consciousness of a human being. They are known to listen in on the activities in the lowest heaven, and to transmit such information to fortune-tellers, while mixing into them numerous lies. The Quran recounts that when God ordered Satan to bow down before Adam, he refused, and God therefore condemned him for eternity. However, Satan asked for respite, and to be given the chance to corrupt humanity, to effectively attempt to prove to God that man was not worthy of his reverence. The Kabbalah is purportedly the ancient wisdom transmitted by the fallen angels, referred to in the Bible as the sons of God, who interbred with the female descendants of the cursed Cain. Following their expulsion from the garden, Adam and Eve had two sons, Cain and Abel. Out of jealousy, Cain murdered his brother, and God said to him, "And now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you cultivate the ground, it shall no longer yield its strength to you, you shall be a vagrant and a wanderer on the earth." And Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is too great to bear. Behold, thou hast driven me this day from the face of the ground, and from thy face I shall be hidden, and I shall be a vagrant and a wanderer on the earth, and it will come about that whoever finds me will kill me." So the Lord said to him, "Therefore whoever kills Cain, vengeance will be taken on him sevenfold." And the Lord appointed a mark for Cain, lest anyone finding him should slay him. The Bible recounts that after Abel was unjustly slain by his brother, Adam and Eve had a third son, Seth. Therefore, there were two branches that developed to populate the earth, a righteous generation descended from Seth, and another branch descended from Cain, which filled the earth with violence and corruption. According to legend, the race of Cain intermarried with the sons of God. 3 In the Bible, however, the story is mentioned only briefly, and fails to state that the sons of God intermarried with the sons of Cain. Their offspring were a race of giants, referred to as the Anakim. Unaware of the story's true significance, translators of the Bible have struggled with this subject, and consequently, have often translated the size of the Anakim as referring to other qualities. Hence, they are usually translated as mighty men of renown, or mighty ones of eternity. In Genesis 6:1-4. Now it came about, when men began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were beautiful, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he also is flesh, nevertheless his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were upon the earth in those days and thereafter too. Those sons of the gods who cohabited with the daughters of Adam, and they bore children into them. They were the mighty ones of eternity, Anakim. The corruption that filled the earth by the descendants of the sons of God angered God, who caused the flood, to destroy humanity, all except Noah and his family who survived by building the ark. According to the Bible, Noah had survived the flood with his 3 sons, Shem, Japheth, and Ham. After a bout of drunkenness, Noah fell asleep without covering himself. When his son Ham came into his tent, he saw his father naked, and laughed. His 2 other brothers, Shem and Japheth, were wiser and entered backwards into their father's tent to cover him. For his sin, Ham was cursed by Noah, but due to his nearness in relation to him, he placed the curse not on Ham, but on Ham's son, Canaan, and his descendants, the Canaanites. Noah then pronounced, according to Exodus 9:24-25, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants he shall be to his brothers." However, similar corruption returned to the earth under the reign of Nimrod, the son of Canaan's brother Cush, and the ruler of the ancient city of Babylon, where there took place the failed attempt to build the legendary Tower of Babel. The Bible hints that Nimrod is to be identified with the constellation of Orion, an important symbol of the dying god. The myth of the dying god would come to pervade, not only the mystical systems of antiquity, but which would transform Western religion and philosophy. Typically, the dying god was a usurper, who supplants the original creator god by vanquishing the dragon, who was leader of a race of giants. The underlying dying god mythology involved the cycle of the seasons. The dying god was a representation of the sun, who dies at the winter solstice, Christmas, and resurrects at the spring equinox, or Easter. Further festivals were timed with the summer solstice, St. John's Day, and fall equinox, Halloween, All Hallows' Eve, or All Saints' Eve. The dying god's goddess spouse was Venus, the morning star, though the two were seen as dual aspects of the same deity. The Latin name for Venus is Lucifer. The dying god was universally regarded as the god of the underworld, where he ruled over the spirits of the dead, as discarnate entities were interpreted to be by many early cultures. The first to recognize the recurring archetype of the dying and rising gods was James Frazer in The Golden Bough, first published in 1890, which has had a substantial influence on European anthropology and thought. For the focus of Fraser's research was to attempt to discover the source of the ancient religious tradition of the sacred killing of the king. In ancient paganism, the king was perceived to be the living embodiment of the dying god, and therefore the fertility of the land was considered dependent on his health. As the king became frail with old age, the success of crops would become at risk, and it was therefore necessary to execute him to allow him to be succeeded by a more virile heir. Ancient monarchs eventually exercised their influence, such that a replacement, or scapegoat, was put in the king's place for a time, and allowed to revel in his temporary role, until he was himself sacrificed in the king's stead, during an annual New Year's festival. 5. Nimrod was referred to in the Bible as a mighty hunter before the Lord, which Jewish tradition identified with the constellation of Orion. The dying god was symbolized by Orion, one of the most conspicuous constellations. Lying along the celestial equator, Orion is visible from practically all the Earth, in the beginning and end of the year. Therefore, Orion is the subject of many ancient myths and legends, and seems to have been considered the center of the universe. The Assyrian Adad, the Hurrian Teshub, the unnamed Hittite weather god, and the Canaanite Baal, all had similar appearances and mythological themes identifying him with Orion. Nimrod was identified with Bel, or Marduk, the chief god of the Babylonian Pantheon. 6. The original Babylonian religion was headed by a trinity, Sin, Shamash, and Ishtar. Sin became the moon god, considered to have fathered many children, among whom were twins, brother and sister, Shamash and Ishtar, which became, respectively, the sun and Venus. In mythology, Shamash was the son of the moon god Sin, known as Nana in Sumerian, and thus the brother of the goddess Ishtar, Sumerian, Inanna, who represented the great star of Venus. In early inscriptions, Shamash's consort was the goddess Aya, whose role was gradually merged with that of Ishtar. In later Babylonian astral mythology, Sin, Shamash, and Ishtar formed a major triad of divinities, which still today plays an important role in astrological systems, though under different names. Ninurta was Saturn, the brother of Mars. Mars was Nergal, god of war, lord of the dead, and god of the underworld. Mercury was Nabu, messenger of the gods, presiding over wisdom, writing, accounts, and patron of scribes and writing.